Okay, you all hear me, right? Yes, and also see, I hope. But so we've been talking a bit about so the problem of knowledge and encyclopedias online and these kind of topics. So my presentation for today actually was made by this kind of topic. So I just wanted to ask a few questions actually, then show a video. And then hopefully people will intervene on this topic and say what they think about it. Because I think that the problem of web and humanities is something that we are all facing. So it's not like something that we can take for granted, because it's something that actually it's happening. So we have a lot of information on the web. If we don't know something, we just Google it, we go on Wikipedia, we also watch videos on YouTube, there are many YouTube channels, so it's something that it's useful either whether we are working in academia and whether we want to gather some information about what's going on in life, so news, what's happening in the world. So there are a few observations about that we have been talking about a bit before. It's one, of course, is which things are relevant and which are not. So how is our modality of gathering information changing? So and this also is a problem of who is the intellectual, who has the authority, because there is a democratization also of knowledge, so everyone can access some information. And we also had a debate in Italy with Umberto Eco's famous statement that, of course, ignorant people is not that they have never existed, it's just that everyone can speak on internet, so everyone feel free to say something on different topics. And I think it is something positive to some extent, and that we shouldn't approach this topic with like ideologies or pre-comprehensions or too much skepticism, such as the web is something bad and you are only simplifying and some knowledge is only for an elite. But from the other side, it opens to the problem of how can we say something, how can we as people who are studying this, saying something on the web in a relevant way which saves the content, but it also adapted to the tool we are using, which is social media, because of course we cannot use social media and it's not the same, the medium is not the same as a book, it's something different, so we also have to adapt a content. So this was one point. So who has the authority at the end to talk? Who is the intellectual? Who is the humanist? Who is the person who's giving opinions on the web? Who is the person who should we think has the authority to say something? And the other point is, yes, the simplification of contents. How can we make these contents available for many people without losing too much of their integrity, so without oversimplifying them? Because as I said, I think it's something interesting. There are people who maybe have always been interested in early Christianity, but maybe they did something else in their lives, they studied other things. I'm thinking about my father, who has always been a businessman and now he's retiring and he's totally interested in art, for example. So there are many people who might be interested in approaching this kind of knowledge, but and there are many websites, many YouTube channels, but of course it's always a problem the way we are veiculating it. So I'm just showing a video, which is on Augustine in 6 minutes. So, and the author makes obviously some choices, and the reason why I'm showing it is because it's very popular on the web. So I'm just starting from the fact that people are watching this video. So we are free to talk about it and maybe also reflect on why this video is that popular. For example, what can change? How could we make it better, for example, if we are criticizing it? So yeah, so my presentation was about these hints. We have been discussing that in the past few days, so it's something that I think everyone could have something to talk about. So now I will just start. Hope there is working.
Augustine was a Christian philosopher who lived in the 4th and 5th century AD on the fringes of the rapidly declining Roman Empire in the North African town of Hippo. He served as bishop for 35 years, proving popular and inspirational to his largely uneducated and poor congregation. In his last days, a Germanic tribe known as the Vandals burnt Hippo to the ground, destroyed the legions, made off with the town's young women, but left Augustine's cathedral and library entirely untouched out of respect for the elderly philosopher's achievements. He matters to us non-Christians today because of what he criticized about Rome, its values and its outlook, and because Rome has so many things in common with the modern West, especially the United States. The Romans believed in two things in particular. 1. Earthly happiness. They were, on the whole, an optimistic lot. The builders of the Pont du Gard and the Colosseum had faith in technology, in the power of humans to master themselves, and in their ability to control nature and plot for their own happiness and satisfaction. Writers like Cicero and Plutarch had a degree of pride, ambition, and confidence in the future, which, with some revisions, wouldn't be out of place in modern-day Palo Alto or the pages of Wired. The Romans were keen practitioners of what we would nowadays call self-help, training their audiences to greater success and effectiveness. In their eyes, the human animal was something eminently open to being perfected. 2. A just social order. For long periods, the Romans trusted that their society was marked by justice, justitia. People of ambition and intelligence could make it to the top. The army was trusted to be meritocratic. The capacity to make money was held to reflect both practical ability and also a degree of inner virtue. Therefore, showing off one's wealth was deemed honourable and a point of pride, and fame was considered a wholly respectable ideal. Augustine disagreed furiously with both of these assumptions. In his masterpiece, The City of God, he dissected each of these 2 points, that human life could be perfected and the societies were just, in ways that continue to prove relevant to us today. It was Augustine who came up with the idea of original sin. He proposed that all humans, not merely this or that unfortunate example, were crooked because all of us are unwitting heirs to the sins of Adam. Our sinful nature gives rise to what Augustine called a libido dominandi, a desire to dominate, which is evident in the brutal, blinkered, merciless way we treat others and the world around us. We cannot properly love, for we are constantly undermined by our egoism and our pride. Our powers of reasoning and understanding are fragile in the extreme. Lust haunts our days and nights. We fail to understand ourselves. We chase phantoms. We're beset by anxieties. Augustine concluded his assault by chiding all those philosophers who, in his words, have wished with amazing folly to be happy here on earth and to achieve bliss by their own efforts. It might sound depressing, but it may turn out to be a curious relief to be told that our lives are awry, not by coincidence, but by definition, simply because we're human, and because nothing human can ever be made entirely straight. We are creatures fated to intuit virtue and love, while never quite being able to secure them for ourselves. Our relationships, careers, and countries are necessarily not as we'd want them to be. It isn't anything specific we have done. The odds are simply stacked against us from the start. Augustinian pessimism takes off some of the pressure we might feel when we slowly come to terms with the imperfect nature of pretty much everything we do and are. We shouldn't rage or feel that we've been persecuted or singled out for undue punishment. It's simply the human condition, the legacy of what we might as well, even if we don't believe in Augustine's theology, call original sin. Romans had, in their most ambitious moments, thought themselves to be running a meritocracy, a society where those who got to the top were deemed to have done so on the back of their own virtues. After the Emperor Constantine's conversion to Christianity, the philosopher Eusebius even proposed that earthly power was God's instrument for establishing Christianity on earth, so that the powerful in Rome were now not just privileged, but also blessed and righteous in God's eyes. "What arrogant, boastful, and cruel claims," responded Augustine. "There never was nor ever could be justice in Rome, or indeed anywhere else on earth. God didn't give good people wealth and power, and nor did he necessarily condemn those who lacked them." Augustine distinguished between what he called two cities, the city of men and the city of God. The latter was an ideal of the future, a heavenly paradise where the good would finally dominate, where power would be properly allied to justice, and where virtue would reign. But men could never build such a city alone, and should never believe themselves capable of doing so. They were condemned to dwell only in the city of men, which was a pervasively flawed society, where money could never accurately track virtue. In Augustine's formulation, true justice has no existence save in that republic whose founder and ruler is Christ. Again, it may sound bleak, but it makes Augustine's philosophy extremely generous towards failure, poverty, and defeat, our own and that of others. It's not for humans to judge each other by outward markers of success. From this analysis flows a lack of moralism and snobbery. It's our duty to be skeptical about power and generous towards failure. We don't need to be Christians to be comforted by both these points. They are the religion's universal gifts to political philosophy and human psychology. They stand as permanent reminders of some of the dangers and cruelties of believing that life can be made perfect, or that poverty and obscurity are reliable indicators of vice in a city of men.
Okay, so this was just an example. Of course, we can find many channels on YouTube. So I would just like to open it to questions, or not that I have an answer, but debate or hints that you might have. So feel free.
Obviously, dumbfounded us all. Yeah, thank you very much. I thought it was a very interesting video. What I liked about it is that it had a line of arguing, and Augustine was certainly someone who was counter-critical. He was very critical of the core values of the Roman Empire, and managed thereby to develop a vision that outlasted the decline or the disintegration of the Roman Empire. And that in itself is an interesting move. So in that sense, he's our hero. Yeah, that's what the humanities are good at, criticizing things in a certain way. But he replaced it with something that was meant to last beyond the thing he was criticizing. So thank you very much. But I hope there are others.
I enjoyed the video for what it was. As you were saying, I enjoyed the fact that it told a story, and I enjoyed it for what it was. And it's a bit like the 300 movie. Is it an accurate account of the battle between Spartans and Persians? No. Does it capture the heart of the propaganda that Sparta made of that battle and the everlasting dream of Sparta? I think it does, because it makes some choices that tell a story. So in this, I think these kind of videos and these kind of products, which are what they are valuable for this.
My question is, what is the purpose lying behind this kind of narration of Augustine? This is my first question when I look at some video this way.
I think that it was a lot of information, and I think, okay, if they wanted to just to reach a broad audience and to simplify it, they gave a lot of information, and I don't know how much someone who never studied these topics, who does not know this kind of topics, how much one can get from this. So I think that if it was for a broader audience, it didn't reach the purpose, because it was just a lot of information, and I don't know how much, for example, my mom can understand from this video. On the other hand, if it was for a more academic and audience, it was oversimplified, and so I do not agree with this kind of video, and I think that they, they do not reach any specific purpose.
Thank you. I find the video quite interesting for two aspects, and I can call them a sort of secularization of our studies, in that because the presentation of Augustine is made with a clear aim in mind by the authors, and is to create a completely secularized Augustine. You know, there is only the final points. We have a problem without psychology on the one hand, and on the other hand, we have a problem with the power, with the political power. The message of the video is that Augustine is the first one who clearly states that power is not good, and so he can drive our attitude towards power. And the other one is that we have a problem with ourselves, with our psychology, and so he calls him original sin, but now we can call him difficult to get felicity and happiness and so on. But this is the first aspect of the double secularization of Augustine presented by this video. The other one is that such an approach is completely secularized from our approach to Augustine as scholars. There is no hint, for instance, at the problem of the transcendence of God and so on. And in this way, it's not only Augustine to be secularized, but also our approach to Augustine is completely out of date, since it was not secularized in this sense, in the sense in which the author of the presentation think to present Augustine. And I think that is the challenge we as scholars of Augustine over Christianity has in front. On the one side, we must be aware of the relevance and importance and richness also of such figures as Augustine, Origen, and so on, and of what they can say still today to present time, to our following people, our contemporary people, and so on. But on the other hand, we have to be to recognize that we are under the risk to be completely get off of the presentation of such tradition, because we use an approach, terms, a set of ideas that are no more easily comprehensible to our audience. And in this way, we have to try to present a face of Augustine, or present Augustine in a way that could in a way that we can present Augustine in a middle way between this double secularization, trying to preserve his own way of thinking that is not a secularized way of thinking, but in a way that can also correspond to modern and contemporary question to such a tradition.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I just, in a second, I see there are lots of points, so well done. Just one question, just as a little interruption. If Augustine were sitting among us, do you think he would have liked this video or not? Can I ask you to raise your hands? Who thinks he would have liked it? Okay, who thinks he would not have liked it? I think it's like the British Parliament. There are a few abstentions here, so so we don't have a 2/3 majority, but still, there's certainly a balance. Thank you very much. Who was next? We're here, so you just share it between you. Fernando.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoy so much the video, and only one thought. This video shows us how far the way of communicating matters. That is not the same to present this video with this or that colors, with this or that images and so on. And then all the choices matter. And I think that this video, for us, obviously is a construction. We know this narrative is a construction. But in the second step is that this video shows us that also our academic books are a construction. And the way we write, the way we organize the material and so on, is not just scientific objectivity, but also there is a narrative behind also our scientific books and papers.
I would have said the same.
Oh, good. Very good.
Yeah, I'm maybe not very clear in expressing, but regarding what Elisa was saying, I don't think this is aimed for academic people. Like, I don't think neither of us would learn what Augustine says about Rome by watching this. I mean, maybe you can do it after, just like, yeah, I don't know, have fun. But I do think my mother would enjoy something like this. I mean, okay, maybe she doesn't understand English that well, but if he was an Italian, my mother would understand this video. And I, as Valeria was making the example of his father, my father is the same. He's now retired and he's reading Introduction to Heidegger because I wrote a thesis on Heidegger. Obviously, he would never discuss with me what it means to, what Heidegger meant at page 3 with the word this, but he is fascinated by it, he is interested, and I remember who was saying before, it's true, people are interested in this, the fact that this video probably has some hundreds of vision, and so, and also I think the reason why the video was pretty smart is that he wasn't saying, I will tell you what Augustine says in all his books. It was aiming one question, which is a parallel that is very trendy in America, I think. I mean, my husband keeps speaking as American, he keeps making the parallel between America and Rome because it's very fashionable, and I mean fashionable in a good sense, like the imperialist aspect and when will we collapse and why are we collapsing and what's wrong there and what was wrong in Rome. Obviously, it doesn't always work, and it never worked with all, like any parallel never works 100%, but there are aspects for which I think it might be interest for somebody today to go and read Augustine, because he randomly watched a video on YouTube while he was actually looking for a video on how to do something else, and then the suggestion, because of some weird algorithm, comes out to be this, and then he watches it, and maybe he will be interested in the parallel between Augustine and the, Rome and the US, and will read something. Obviously, we'll never achieve a total understanding, but there is an aspect for which this is the world we are dealing with. Like, what we can do is just like say, this is wrong, like how the world is going today is wrong, and there are a million aspects for which is wrong, but that's how it is. Like, we cannot really like change. Yeah, what I'm saying is simply like, this is the direction towards which we're going, and we can just fight it and say it's wrong, or we can say, despite it being wrong, we find an intelligent way to deal with it, and maybe this is one of the ways. I don't know if it will last forever, but it is one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are lots of...
I saw Anders' hand.
Yeah, but just go on there. And
Okay,
yeah.
so can we take these and then go to Anders? Yeah, is that right?
So
Here.
Okay.
Oh, wow, there you are.
So I agree with you, and now to pick up yours. I think what videos like this can do, because they will be more and more now, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we want our students to do one
our,
as well.
Our students do that. So even at my faculty, they asked us if we want to create such a video for public advertising or something like that. What it can really do is to make us think what's going on there, no? Because basically it's the same. If you write a book, we construct our perception of Augustine. So that I cannot say whether Augustine would like it or not. Out of my perception of Augustine, I could say something. So, and that's what can be done by this in a more pointed way, to make us think what we are doing when we think about history and so on. For instance, this parallel between Rome and states. A good friend of mine, Ed Watts, is historian in California. He wrote a book now, How Rome Fell into Tyranny. And we discussed this book a lot, because his first idea was to show on the Roman example what's going on now in the States. But then in these discussions, I was a bit skeptical, and he decided not to make it so obvious. So he hid it a little bit. But you can compare it, for instance, with a totally different book about the First World War now. There were written a lot of books because of this anniversary now, a century. This book from Clark about Die Schlafwandler in German, what's in English?
Some ambulance.
When you read this book, the title creates the image they stumbled into this war. It was kind of over-determined war. But in his presentation, you see that all the events are consequences of decisions made by people. In many small points, they could have made these decisions otherwise. So you create a certain image, what has happened, and this is the same here in this video, and not just to take it, oh, that's Augustine, but to think what's going on when we try to describe and understand past events or thoughts about that.
So who's next? I think we have one here, and then 2 or 3 there, and I think, 3, and then maybe we round it off.
Okay, to answer especially to what Elisa said, then my question is why to do in this form like that a video? So okay, that it's not for academic, it's for broader audience, but what I don't like in this video is especially the fastness. So you just get a lot of information, but okay, that there is a discursive perception always of authors, of how we study an author and how we present an author. But here you just get some concepts, some catchy words, and a person, my mom, who tries to understand what I'm doing too. What can get really from that? Just some catchy words, and you get politic, city of God, city, 2 cities, and Jesus Christ, but what lies behind that? So okay, to do that we narrate always something, but I don't like the way of narration, this fastness. I think that okay, we can try to explain it better. We can try to be more clear, and so I think it's not. We just became. We are no more able to think if we keep on with this kind of video, because we just think through very small and fast concepts without really understanding what lies behind them.
Are there more on this side? Yeah. Okay. Would you like to do one on origin? Slightly more slowly? Would that be a deal?
To make a video on origin.
Yeah. Would that be a deal?
Okay, not on origin.
6 minutes. 6 minutes. Okay. There were 3 more here, I think. You. And then Arnold and Theo Kobush. Yeah. Okay.
So School of Life did this video, right? So that it's worth noting they've got a team of people who work specifically on these. I don't want to underemphasize how difficult it is to get those videos really good. It takes a long time. We're a team of 16, and we have a creative content designer whose whole job 5 days a week is turning our research findings into visuals. And she's a professional with a degree in communication. So it's difficult, I think, and I think in a sense it's more difficult now than it was 2 years ago. There was a point about 2 years ago when these kind of videos hit a real crescendo. And then the market got a little bit saturated, which means that now to stand out you've got to be good. It's not enough to simply have a video, it needs to be actually of a really high quality, and that is tricky. So I think I'd encourage all these kind of initiatives, but I think it needs to be done really carefully and actually making sure that you're working with someone who's done them before and has really kind of explored some of these issues. There's now a huge kind of technical library of skills and kind of ways of doing this. So I think don't just launch into them would be my tip.
Thank you. Thank you, that's very, very important. There were two more, sorry, I've forgotten Anders and then Theo.
I just, my point is just that you need to know a lot to simplify things like this. You can agree or disagree or, about the format or the fastness or the interpretation and so on, but my point is that if we are afraid of simplifications and constructing narratives, short narratives, we are lost in modern communication some way. Then we can write books, which not many read. That's our option we have now. And then I came to think about our university press in Aarhus have now a format of small books called Think Pause. What's that in English?
Think pause, I don't know.
Think breaks. That's something you say in Danish. If you I need a minute to think, then you have a think break. So the title is Think Breaks. And the concept
Pause for thought.
Pause for thought. Okay. So the concept is the book should be you should be able to read these books or pamphlets in the train from Aarhus to Copenhagen. This is
that's 4 hours.
Yes, so it's a longer concept than this. No, 1 hour or something. But it's a short format where you give different concepts. But it's just it's not 6 minutes. It's an hour maybe. But then you have a book on Jesus or democracy or whatever concept, and reading that in 1 hour, you know basically what this is. And it takes enormous energy and power to write such a, and you can write a big book at the same time, but I think in many ways it's more efficient to write the small short prose.
I fully agree. There is this saying, I have no time to write you a short letter.
Yeah.
Yes, for me it was a bad video because it couldn't communicate that, and it is very important in the case of St. Augustine that there is a development of thinking in Augustine. So, for instance, at the beginning you had the concept of self-help. Self-help is a Platonic expression, comes from the dialogue Gorgias, and Augustine was informed about this, I'm sure. And the same in later on, the idea of universal salvation or the critique on that, it comes from Porphyry. So the development from Platonism of the first writings and the philosophy of freedom to later on to the writings of divine grace and so on, philosophy of grace, I couldn't recognize that.
Thank you very much. I think this was a fantastic example of how the arts and humanities always love debating. If it's okay, Chair, can we just move on? Thank you so much, Valeria. That was a brilliantly chosen